Welcome to the Inner Ascent, a journey beyond the surface. Each week, we distill powerful insights in mindset, health, personal evolution, and conscious growth. Unlock the layers of your mind, one ascent at a time.
The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or a qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you heard in this podcast. The views expressed are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect official positions. Use of any information provided is solely at your own risk.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise, get you informed, and maybe find some of those aha moments together. Today we're tackling something fascinating, something that honestly shifted my own view on a common element. We're calling it Unlocking the Potential of Low-Dose Lithium. A scientific overview. It's a surprising topic. Let's unpack this.
It really is. And what's fascinating here, as you say, is that lithium's story is just so much more nuanced than most people realize. So our goal for you, listening in, is to pull out the key insights, the important stuff, from a whole stack of scientific work. We want to help you understand what's truly significant about this element. And we're sticking strictly to the science, the facts, plausible ideas. No hype, no marketing spin.
Yeah, because when most people hear lithium, I bet their mind jumps straight to one specific thing, right?
Yeah.
Usually related to severe mental illness.
Exactly. That's the common association.
But that's where the popular idea kind of veers away from the bigger picture, the full science.
It does. I mean, lithium itself, it's a soft, silvery white metal, an alkali metal, and it's ancient, like really ancient. Cosmologists think it was one of the first 3 elements made in the Big Bang.
Wow, okay, so fundamental.
Right. And its use goes way back, long before modern medicine. We have records of lithium-rich mineral springs being used in ancient Greece and Rome for various ailments, mental and physical. Fast forward a bit, the first sort of modern medical use was recorded in 1871 for treating mania.
Okay.
Then the really big moment was 1949. John Cade published this landmark paper establishing lithium as effective for manic psychosis. But here's the interesting bit. Even back then, Cade himself suggested, he hypothesized, that maybe lithium was actually an essential trace element.
Ah, so not just a drug, but potentially something our bodies need.
Precisely. He was hinting at this broader biological role way back in 49.
Okay, so we've got this ancient element used in psychiatry. But you're saying there's a huge difference between that use and what we're focusing on today.
A world of difference. And it's absolutely critical to get this distinction clear. High dose versus low dose. High dose lithium, the kind used in psychiatry for bipolar disorder, for example, involves hundreds of milligrams, often 900, maybe 1,200 milligrams a day.
That sounds like a lot.
It is. And those doses are often quite close to toxic levels. That's why patients need strict blood monitoring. And there can be significant side effects like kidney issues.
Right.
But when we talk about low dose, or sometimes people call it microdosing, we're talking tiny amounts, micrograms, maybe up to a few milligrams, say 1 milligram a day.
Okay, so orders of magnitude less.
Exactly. These are the levels you might find naturally in some water sources or in very low dose supplements.
And this difference, high versus low, it feels like it's key to the whole story, maybe even why this element is so misunderstood.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned a kind of suppression.
Well, it's a very curious history. It seems the discovery of lithium as this high-dose pharmaceutical happened right around the same time its potential as an essential element was sort of pushed aside.
How so?
Take 7-Up, the drink. Most people don't know this, but it used to contain lithium, about 5 milligrams per liter.
Really? 7-Up.
Yep, until 1949.
Wait, 1949. That's the same year Cade published his paper and suggested it might be essential.
The very same year. And in that year, lithium was banned from the drink.
Wow. That timing is certainly something.
It is. And from there, you see this shift. An element that was in a popular drink that science was hinting might be essential suddenly gets lumped in regulatory categories with actual poisons. Lead, mercury, arsenic. That's still the case in many places, like the EU. It's often banned as a dietary supplement.
So that one regulatory change, potentially linked to its pharmaceutical discovery, basically changed how we saw lithium for decades.
It seems that way. It obscured this potential role as a trace nutrient, maybe even slowed down research into those low-dose benefits. It's a powerful example of how history and perception shape science.
That's a really complex backstory for just one element. Okay, let's bring it to now. To us. You're talking about these tiny microdoses. How can such small amounts actually do anything significant inside our bodies? What's happening at the cellular level?
Yeah, good question. Because the science here is actually pretty cool. On a really basic level, lithium seems important for mitochondrial function.
The power plants of the cell.
Exactly. It seems to help improve how cells make energy, their metabolism.
Yeah.
And it boosts overall cellular resilience, basically helps your cells work better and tougher.
Okay, more efficient cells.
Right. And then there's autophagy. This is a huge area in longevity research now.
Cell cleanup.
That's a great way to put it. It's the body's natural process for recycling old or damaged cell parts. Keeps things running smoothly. Lithium helps activate autophagy.
And why is that important?
Well, functional autophagy is vital for anti-aging, for immune defense against viruses, for preventing chronic diseases. Think cancer, neurodegeneration, heart problems. It's a core maintenance process. There's also research suggesting lithium might help preserve telomere length.
Those caps on the ends of our chromosomes.
That's them. They shorten as cells divide, which is linked to aging, so preserving them could potentially slow down aging at a cellular level.
Okay, so energy, cleanup, maybe even aging. What else?
Well, then you get into gene expression. Epigenetics.
Changing how genes work without changing the DNA code itself.
Exactly. Lithium seems to act on specific enzymes, key ones like GSK3, glycogen synthase kinase 3, and IMPAS, inositol monophosphatase. Think of these enzymes like brakes in the cell. Lithium eases off those brakes,
Allowing what to happen?
allowing beneficial factors to increase. Things like BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1.
BDNF, that's like brain fertilizer, isn't it?
That's a common analogy, yeah. These factors stimulate neural stem cells to actually create new neurons, neurogenesis,
New brain cells. Where does this happen?
especially in the hippocampus, which, as you know, is critical for learning, memory, and even regulating mood. Oh, and some studies link lithium to higher levels of endocannabinol N-acetyl aspartate, which itself has been correlated with higher IQ scores.
Okay, this is a lot of fundamental stuff. Cell energy cleanup, telomeres, gene expression, new brain cells. It sounds incredibly important. Which brings me back to that earlier point. Why isn't this more widely known? If it's doing all this, what's the holdup?
It's a really good question, and probably not one simple answer. Part of it is definitely that historical baggage, that association with high-dose treatment and toxicity scares. That created a really strong negative public perception, even if it wasn't accurate for low doses.
Okay, the reputation issue.
Then there's the financial side. Researching a natural trace element, something you can't easily patent, well, it's just not as profitable for big pharmaceutical companies compared to developing a new drug.
So less incentive for the big, expensive clinical trials.
Exactly. Less incentive to fund the kind of research that would bring this into mainstream medical awareness. It's kind of a classic case of potentially valuable knowledge just not getting the spotlight.
Okay, well, given all those cellular impacts you described, it probably shouldn't be a huge surprise that low-dose lithium seems to really affect the brain. Can we explore some of those findings?
Absolutely. The neuroprotective effects are quite striking. There's a growing body of evidence suggesting low-dose lithium might reduce the risk of diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
How do we know that?
Well, there are these epidemiological studies looking at large populations, places like Texas, Japan. They've found consistent correlations. Areas with naturally higher lithium levels in the drinking water tend to have lower rates of Alzheimer's disease.
That's compelling. A correlation across different places. But, correlation isn't causation. Is there anything more direct?
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting. There was one study, patients with mild cognitive impairment or early Alzheimer's. They were given just 300 micrograms of lithium a day. Tiny amount.
Okay. What happened?
Over 15 months, their scores on a cognitive test, the MMSE, basically held steady. They stabilized. The group taking a placebo. Their scores declined, as you'd sadly expect.
Wow. Just 300 micrograms made that difference.
That's what the study showed. Now, contrast that with some of the newer Alzheimer's drugs targeting beta amyloid. They can cost, $28,000 a year?
Easily.
And they come with potentially severe side effects. Brain shrinkage has been reported, and this really strange side effect where apparently false beliefs cannot be corrected by fact.
Yeah, it sounds concerning.
It does. Meanwhile, lithium, besides potentially stabilizing cognition, also seems to increase a neuroprotective protein called BCL2. And in lab models of traumatic brain injury, it shows really robust benefits reducing brain lesions, calming neuroinflammation.
Okay, so protective effects against degeneration and injury. What
Yeah.
about just everyday mood and resilience?
That's another major area. Studies going back decades, actually 70s, 90s, confirmed again recently in 2021 from different regions, Texas, Japan again. They consistently show that even trace amounts of lithium in drinking water correlate with significantly lower rates of suicide, depression, aggression, even criminality, and psychiatric hospital admissions.
Lower rates of all those things, just from trace amounts in water.
That's the correlation, yes. It suggests low-dose lithium helps stabilize mood, promotes a sense of calm, might reduce anger. People in some studies report feeling happier, friendlier, more energetic.
So it's boosting resilience somehow.
That's a good way to think about it. Strengthening what you might call mental immunity, improving psychological resilience, critical thinking, maybe even rational empathy, which could lead to better conflict resolution, better social cohesion overall.
You mentioned anecdotes earlier.
Yeah. The sources we looked at mentioned some striking anecdotal reports, especially with children. Dramatic improvements in behavior, fewer tantrums, kids seeming more self-aware, more socially comfortable with low-dose supplementation. And people also report less brain fog, less chronic fatigue.
Okay. There was one other effect mentioned, antiviral.
Yes, that's another interesting facet. Lithium has shown effectiveness against the replication of various viruses in lab settings, including viruses similar to SARS-CoV-2.
How does it do that?
Part of the mechanism seems to be preventing or dampening those dangerous cytokine storms, the immune system overreaction. It seems to improve immune function generally and might reduce the severity of infections and perhaps even long COVID symptoms.
Okay, so a really broad range of potential benefits,
Mm-hmm.
which brings us back to the big question for many people listening. Safety. If it does all this, surely there's a catch. We hear lithium, we think toxicity.
And that's totally understandable given the history.
All right.
But it's crucial, absolutely crucial to reiterate. The extremely low doses we're talking about, micrograms to a few milligrams, are considered safe and non-toxic.
The toxicity fears are only for the high psychiatric doses.
Entirely. Those doses are therapeutic because they're close to toxic levels. It's a narrow window. Low dose is completely different. Let's put some numbers on it. For an average adult, say 70 kilograms, the no observed adverse effect level, the NOAL, has been identified as 85 milligrams per day.
Okay, 85 milligrams is the level where studies saw no harm.
Correct. Now compare that to the typical low-dose suggestion we're discussing, maybe 1 milligram per day.
That's a huge difference.
It's a safety factor of 85. An 85-fold difference between a potentially optimal low dose and the highest dose known to be safe.
How does that compare to other things we take, like vitamins or minerals?
It's way higher. Think about essential trace elements like zinc or selenium. Their safety factors are usually more like 5 to 20 times the recommended intake. So lithium at these low doses has a remarkably wide safety margin.
That really does put the risk in perspective. You mentioned lithium orotate earlier.
Yes, that's often a preferred form because it seems highly bioavailable. A typical tablet might contain 5 milligrams of actual elemental lithium. And at these low, non-prescription levels, blood tests generally aren't needed like they are for the high doses.
Are there any situations where people should be cautious, even with low doses?
Yes, definitely. Standard precautions apply. People with significant kidney or cardiovascular disease, severe dehydration, those taking certain medications like diuretics or ACE inhibitors, they should definitely consult a doctor. Same goes for pregnancy or breastfeeding, always best to check with a healthcare professional.
Right, standard sensible precautions. Okay, we've covered the science, the benefits, the safety, but practically speaking, how do people even access this if it's often restricted? And how does it fit into a bigger picture of health?
Yeah, the access issue is a real challenge. Like we said, in many places, you need a prescription even for low doses, or it's banned entirely as a supplement. That's a huge barrier, isn't it? Despite the science pointing to benefits.
So people might turn to lithium-rich mineral waters.
Some do, but drinking enough of that every day to get a consistent low dose can get pretty expensive pretty quickly. It really highlights this gap between what the science suggests might be beneficial and what's easily available to the public.
And how should we think about lithium in our overall health strategy? Is it some kind of magic bullet?
Absolutely not. And that's really important to stress. Lithium isn't a cure-all. It won't fix everything on its own. It's best viewed as one crucial piece of a larger puzzle, part of a comprehensive, you could say, species-appropriate lifestyle.
Meaning
Paying attention to all the fundamentals, getting enough vitamin D, omega-3s, iodine, zinc, other key nutrients, plus prioritizing good sleep, Regular physical activity, having a sense of purpose in life, all these things work together. There's this concept called the law of the minimum. Basically, if you're deficient in one essential thing, just piling on more of something else won't fix the underlying problem. Your health is limited by the weakest link.
So lithium might be that missing link for some people, but it needs the rest of the chain to be strong too.
Exactly. It's about synergy. But looking at the evidence, lithium seems like a really promising and seriously underappreciated trace element for long-term brain health. And maybe, just maybe, it has a role to play in fostering a calmer, more resilient society, too.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up. What does this all mean? We started with lithium, maybe something you associated with psychiatric drugs, but we found this whole other story. An ancient element, possibly essential. A critical difference between high, potentially toxic doses and these tiny, low doses. We heard about a history where its potential might have been overlooked, maybe even suppressed. Then we dove into the cell, boosting energy, cleaning house via autophagy, maybe protecting telomeres, influencing gene expression, even helping grow new brain cells, particularly in the hippocampus.
Right, and we connected that cellular action to potential real-world benefits, protecting the brain against degeneration and injury, stabilizing mood, enhancing resilience, maybe even fighting viruses, all backed by some compelling studies, correlations from drinking water, even anecdotes.
And crucially, we addressed the safety. At these microdose levels, the evidence points to it being remarkably safe, with a much wider safety margin than many common supplements.
But access remains an issue, and it's definitely not a magic pill. It's one part of a holistic approach. Gotta have the other pieces like diet, sleep, exercise, purpose in place too.
So this deep dive really uncovered a fascinating narrative around an element many of us thought we knew.
It really did. And maybe it leaves you, the listener, with a thought to consider. Here we have this potentially essential element, backed by intriguing science, yet it's often undervalued, restricted, maybe even feared because of confusion with high doses. What would actually change for you, for society, if everyone had easy access, not just to this element, but to all the knowledge and essential building blocks our bodies and brains need to function optimally? What if those historical perceptions or regulatory hurdles weren't there? Imagine the potential impact on individual well-being, on our collective ability to think clearly, maybe even foster a bit more peace, something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep digging for those insights.
You've been listening to The Inner Ascent, where growth begins from within. If today's reflection resonated with you, consider sharing it or revisiting it later. Until next time, stay aware, stay curious, and keep rising.